Okay, good evening, everybody. It's great to have you all here, and we couldn't be more delighted to be joined by Kudrat and Yashwardhan, who are two of our distinguished alumni here for this mentorship meetup organized by the Office of Alumni Relations. Um, so we're going to begin by having a quick conversation with first Yashwardhan on civil services exams in particular, and then with Kudrat on the field of conflict management and what it's all about and what kind of opportunities JGU graduates can look forward to in that field. And then we're also delighted to be launching the collaboration between Kudrat's YCM and JGU, for which we are joined by our very dear Professor Ajay Pandey, who will also be addressing us in a short while. So without further ado, let me go to Yashwardhan, who is going to talk about civil service exams in general, and give us the inside view by sharing his own experiences, but who's also going to specifically focus on the, and I wrote this down because it's so long, Services Selection Board exam of the Indian Army for the post of Judge Advocate General, right? So Yashwardhan, we'd love to know, was there a point during your time at JGU at the Jindal Global Law School during your BA LLB that you first thought of even going down the civil services route, or did that all happen much later? And once you decided to do that, what was it about your time at JGU that really helped you navigate the process? So yes.
All right, thank you so much, ma'am. So actually, I'm from the first batch of Jindal. So we got an opportunity to fully explore all the ideas which used to come into our head, and we used to discuss those ideas with a large group of highly qualified academics who were of global repute, and the coterie of students that were present, they helped me in exploring interdisciplinary topics and have a larger view of the things going around in the world. So the entire environment which was there at Jindal, it allowed me to think clearly and think deeply about core issues, whether it be about international law or law in general or geopolitics, because the course was designed as such that we had interdisciplinary topics to be covered. And it allowed me to understand how interconnected our world really is. And especially with the exchange students and our students, in fact, my batchmates and my juniors going for exchanges to different countries, all these things allowed me to have a larger view of things, where people used to discuss their own experiences when they went for these exchanges. And so the entire environment at Jindal, it makes you create, it helps you in creating a sense of duty and a sense of responsibility, not only towards yourself, but towards the nation and the world at large. And obviously, I mean, with the kind of research centers and the kind of library and the resources that we have, it acts as a temple of learning. And it's not only restricted to academics. The best part is that uh, with so many co-curricular activities on offer, such as music, drama, debating, sports, and these facilities are at par with the world. So it allowed me to develop a proper balance between having good academics, maintaining a good academic record, and excelling in academics, as well as excelling in other co-curricular activities. So that is one of the things. And being at Jindal, the time when I was looking at my career options, I belong to basically a family of bureaucrats. So I saw the kind of service they offer to the nation and the kind of recognition they get for the work that they do. So that allowed me uh, uh, to have an inclination towards joining the services. And even in fact, being at Jindal, there used to be a lot of training sessions for civil servants at Jindal, and even army officers used to come and have trainings at Jindal. So those are one of the things which inspired me towards this side of, uh, this career of having, being a civil servant or joining the army. And one of the things for joining Judge Advocate General was that I used to watch this TV show. It used to air. It was an American TV show by the name of Judge Advocate General, and I used to like it. So that made me aware, and then I started looking for whether Indian Army also has certain things like this. Then eventually I did find out, and I appeared for the SSB, and I cleared it finally, thankfully, and somehow I managed to clear it. Because and your preparation doesn't start like a year before the exam. It keeps on going, so you need to be on the top of things while you are learning whatever course anybody is pursuing at Jindal. So I think that would be a brief uh, introduction to what inspired me to join. And being an officer either with the government of India or government of any state or the armed forces, it opens opportunities for you. And along with that, you have a strong sense of duty towards the nation, and you can contribute to nation building. So these are a few benefits that you get once you become an officer of the government. So I think these are good enough reasons to join it.
Fantastic. And I was thinking that, nobody from who actually studies law ever watches legal dramas, and those are only for for people like me.
Right, those are the things that we learned from the professors that taught us at Jindal. They used to have these
Well, I'm delighted to meet a fellow legal drama head. Maybe we can do a watch party
you learn
or
a lot of
something.
things by watching
Watch party of Suits or something later. But listen, talk to us about this SSB JAG business. Is it kind of like all the other UPSC type civil service exams that we've heard about, or is it different?
It's completely different. SSB is basically designed to test the psychology of the candidates who are going to be recommended to join as officers of the armed forces. So with the specific recruitment that I had was regarding JAG, which is Judge Advocate General Department. That's the legal department of the Indian Army. And their main job is to conduct court of inquiries, handle the legal affairs of the army, court martials, etc. So they have their own set of laws, which are not taught in most places. So I think there are a few law schools who teach army acts and other acts, but it's a very specific role that you play. And SSB is different because it's not a 1 day exam; it's a 5 day exam. And there are a few stages that you need to cross, and even after crossing those stages, there are medical examinations which happen. So I'll describe the stages of the exam, like specific to JAG. For the people belonging to the legal field, there is direct SSB. You have to fill an application, and based on your application, the army uh, will uh, will give out call letters, and they'll call you for the SSB. And the day one is the most important, because that's the day when you get screened in. By screening in, I mean is that's the stage one. So there are two kind of tests which happen. First is the intelligence test, including verbal and non-verbal intelligence tests. That's a very general aptitude test, which I'm sure every student goes through while preparing for exams, even for admissions. So that's a very generic test. The other test is the picture perception and discussion test, in which they show you a hazy picture, which is a black and white picture, and you have to write a story around that picture from whatever you can see. And after writing a story, you have to describe your story in a group of 15 or 18 people. That's depending on the number of candidates. And then you have to reach to a common story after describing your own story, and then and reach and discuss amongst everybody, and come out with a common story, which rarely happens. so what they are basically looking at is your behavior in a group of people, how you express your thoughts, and what do you see really. So you have to sit in front of these psychologists who are very well trained to make a profile in their heads, at least on the day of the screening. So after that, you get selected, and then your real SSB starts. That's from day two. On day two, you have psychological testing, in which there are these four tests. First test is the thematic perception test, in which the same exercise happens, in which they show you 11 pictures, all all hazy pictures, and you have to write your story, whatever you see in those pictures, one after the other. Then there is a word association test, in which there are about 60 words which are flashed on the screen one by one, and you have to write sentences using those words. Then there is a situation reaction test, in which you get some situations which are quite common and practical situations, and they see your response, that how do you respond to that situation. Then there is a self-description test, in which they ask you about your parents, about your friends, your colleagues, your teachers. What do you think about them? What do they think about you? Uh, then what do you think about yourself? And what kind of a person do you want to be? And what improvements are needed, etc. So basically, you're creating a psychological profile about the candidate. So what this test does is that candidate is shown stimuli, and he's asked to respond. So in that process, his emotional, attitudinal, and behavioral patterns, they emerge very clearly. So this is just to analyze how the candidate thinks. Then comes the day three, which is a group testing exercise, in which there are two rounds of group discussions. There is a group planning exercise, in which, yeah, you're provided a map, and then there are certain situations that are given to you, and you have to complete those situations. Then there is a progressive group task. There is a group obstacle race. There is a half group task. There is a lecturate, in which you're asked to speak on a topic of your choosing. And then there are individual obstacles. There is a command task, and there is a final group task. So this is the day three. It might go on till day four also. So it depends, actually, on the board. And then there is a personal interview, which is taken by either the president of the services selection board, or the deputy president of the services selection board. Both are high ranking army officers, and they ask you questions based on a personal information questionnaire, which you fill on the day of screening. After you get screened in, they give you a questionnaire, in which they ask you all the details. What did you study? What achievements do you have? Uh, everything under the sun. And then the final day is the day of the conference, which in which everybody is all dressed up in their uniforms, and they have their entire profile with them, and then they decide whether you are going to be recommended to join or not. So in this entire process, there are these three people who are very important. First, the first person is the psychologist, who is going to say either yes or no. Then is the group task officer, the GTO, the group testing officer, the person who is going to observe how you perform your tasks. And then the third person is your interviewing officer, because you have a personal one-to-one interaction with that person. So all three of them have to say yes, that yes, it is okay for you to join the army as an officer. So there are a couple of pointers that everybody needs to make sure that they are prepared before facing the board. Is that firstly, they should not have any hesitations, and should not go for these coachings and all, because that means you're not being yourself in front of them, and they can catch it at any time. And they keep asking you also that, oh, have you been to this coaching, etc., because they want to see you as you, not somebody else. And so best is to be yourself in these kind of exams, and answer truthfully and honestly as you can, and have information about the army and its services, what kind of services are there, because army is a huge organization. They have multiple services, under their belt. And so you have to have basic information about the ranks, then about how it operates and what are the current contentious areas, the border areas, the issues of geopolitical importance, any key national issues which are currently in debate. They would not ask you anything about the law. Uh, like at least with me, it did not happen because they are not concerned about it, because obviously you are joining them as an officer after being a graduate and a registered advocate. So you need to first register yourself as an advocate and then apply uh, for these exams as JAG for JAG. And sometimes it does happen, but those are very rare occasions where they might ask you legal questions, and mostly it will be about how well aware you are about what is going on in the world and what is going on with the government of India, and how is army tackling the issues, especially at the borders. And there are certain qualities that they look for in a candidate, which if anybody's prepared, is known as those qualities are known as officer-like qualities. So they are basically looking for those. So if I break it down, I can break it down into four parts. First part is they look for the quality of planning and organizing. So in that comes first thing which comes is the effective intelligence. Second is your reasoning ability. Third is your organizing ability, and fourth is your power of expression. Then second part which comes is your social adjustment. Whether your first is in within that the first thing that comes is social adaptability. Second is cooperation, and third is sense of responsibility. Then is your social effectiveness, in which first thing that comes is initiative. Then second is self confidence. Third is speed of decision. Fourth is your ability to influence the group. Fifth is liveliness. Then the fourth and the final part is your dynamic part of your personality, which is your determination, your courage, and your stamina. So I think overall, I have covered more or less the things that people need to take care of. And there are various books available online which they can buy and go through it. I can also guide later on whenever if somebody needs any kind of advice with the entire process. But just a brief introduction to the exercise that the Army undertakes for recommending candidates, especially for the job of a Judge Advocate General. And after being recommended from a board, you have to end up in the merit list. So there is a merit list which happens. They collect all the recommended candidates from different boards of the Army. Uh, After that, there is a merit list which is made. And as per the vacancies available, uh, whether you make it or not, it depends really on where you lie in the merit. And after that, there are medical examinations which go on from either eight to 10 days, because they test everything, all parts of your body, your blood, your ENT, your X-rays, and they're looking for any kind of diseases or infirmities that you have. So that takes a while. If anybody is aspiring to join the armed forces, they should get these medical tests done beforehand, beforehand, before going for their recruitment exercise, because then they'll get to know where medically they are unfit. Or later on, there's an entire long exercise which happens. Once you're declared unfit, they give you 42 days to fix that problem, which is known as an appeal medical board process. Then even if at that stage it does not happen, they give you another chance to go for a review medical board, but that is on a case by case basis, because that happens at the Army Research and Referral Hospital in Delhi. So my advice would be to just get your medical test done before you decide to join. And while learning at Jindal, make sure you pay attention to topics of national and international importance. Like for example, if the board was going on right now, they would definitely ask me about what is going on in Afghanistan. So and what role the Indian government has to play there. So topics like that. For example, uh, there was a border dispute with China, so they would definitely ask you what happened there, what was the issue all about. They will definitely ask you about what is happening in the Northeast, what happened to Jammu and Kashmir, all of these issues. So just an example, doesn't necessarily mean they will ask this, but just as an example. So yeah.
So basically, it's a really easy exam then, Yashwant.
I mean,
it's a cakewalk, pretty much, is what I got gathered from what you said. Oh my God, I'm sitting here feeling so proud of you that you even like went through all of this, and not just went through, but so brilliantly at that. And the way you explained it, I mean, no one could have like explained it better, I have to say. Thanks also for the plug-in at the end for the importance of the social science courses in the law school, especially international relations, which is what I teach. So, listen, I could ask you so many more questions, but I want to see if any of the students in attendance have any questions for Yashwardhan. Please raise your hand, and I will ask you to unmute yourself and ask your question.
So after students have asked their questions, I would also like to say something. So please allow me a few seconds to do that.
Absolutely, Mr. Pandey. Okay, so who has a question, students? I don't see any hands. Okay. Well, I think Professor Pandey, yes, please go ahead.
Yes. So I could immediately recognize Harshvardhan, our first batch student. Yes. I'm so proud of you, Harshvardhan. You have done so well. And I was actually kind of reliving my own SSB days when you were explaining what SSB is. I went to a Sainik school, and I took these SSB exams twice. Once in Dehradun. The first one was actually at Bangalore for the Indian Army. And the second one was at Dehradun for the Air Force. I was not at all interested in the Air Force. I was interested to join the Armed Forces, and that too Indian Army. But eventually I'm here. So it is really so good to listen to you and to know that this is what you're doing. It's absolutely wonderful.
I'm actually not doing this because mera medical issue फंस गया था. That's why that's why I was explaining.
I see. I see. Okay. So what happened finally?
So I got into the merit, but I went to the review medical stage, and the army people were like, unfortunately, our rules don't allow. So I said, your rules are so old, you can make an exception since you have a meritorious candidate. Right. But they were hesitant in not allowing. Then I decided I'll file a case against the army. That what is this? But then I was like, chalo, theek hai, there might be something better on in the future. So I'll let it be.
Absolutely. That's true.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what is there in store for you. Most of my classmates are in the armed forces. They are of the rank of brigadiers and all. So that is, yeah, it's good. So good to listen to you.
Thank you so much. So I unfortunately, since we started on the SSB, I could not focus on the other competitive exams. But if anybody would like for me to cover them up, I can also do that. I mean, depending on how the session goes.
Thank you. That's been most instructive and enlightening, Yashwardhan.
Thank you.
And thank you also for your offer to continue guiding students. We will keep that in mind. Do stay with us for the rest of the session if you.
Yes, definitely. I'll be here.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Want to turn now to Kudrat. Kudrat, if you're there. And to our conversation about conflict management. Again, if you can just let us know what was the starting point of your journey in this field. Was it while you were at JGU or later? How did you get yourself into this? And what you would say are the highlights of the kind of assignments and projects you've been doing so far? Go ahead.
So first, thank you for having me here. It's been so nice listening to Yash. We were in different classes, but when nobody was raising their hand and asking questions, And Yash and I, both of us had that smile because we've been a part of GGU where we had these conferences and webinars, and then everybody would look around and, okay, who's going to ask this question? But coming back to the main point, so I think GGU really helps you build those qualities. I always say that it's been a transformational part of my life and my values. So something that I learned at GGU is if you have an idea and if you connect with the right people, you can make it come true, right? So Professor Ajay Pandey is one of them. I remember Meher and I, we started the Women in Law Society. So for those of the students who joined in, Yash and I are from the first batch, okay? So we had to be creative and innovative and we had to get things going, but we had the right support from our faculty and admin and a vice chancellor, and it was all about, be an explorer. That's something that's always been with me. People earlier thought, okay, being the first batch of a university, maybe not a good idea, but it absolutely worked out wonderfully for me. And then once I graduated, I joined Khaitan and Company as a dispute resolution lawyer, doing a lot of arbitrations. But soon I realized that, okay, something's missing in our dispute resolution system and culture. And with that question mark, took the traditional route and went and did my master's as a Shevening scholar, got trained as a mediator. And I realized that I want to focus my energies towards amicable dispute resolution. That time, of course, mediation was being pushed by a lot of people in India, but it was not fully there. Today, we are speaking about a law for mediation, right? And every other day you have a judgment from the Supreme Court saying, we need a complete legislative framework for mediation. And I think that's how YCM was actually born in London when I was doing my master's there. And I met peer mediators and youth mediators there from, say, 4-year-olds to 23-year-olds resolving their own disputes. These educational campuses don't have a disciplinary committee at all. So I'm like, hey, this is a cool system. And every system starts for a young person, in their school or college. And whatever we learn there, that's what we reflect at a larger level in the society. So then I asked myself, why is mediation not working in India? Why are top CEOs and, higher business management not able to resolve their disputes using the process of mediation? And the answer was that if there has to be a change, it has to come from the youth. The mindset change has to come there. And that's when I collaborated with Professor Ajay Pandey. And soon everybody will hear about YCM GGU, where we're trying to use youth power to convert conflicts into growth spaces. So we have several training programs, we have addas, webinars, internship opportunities for students, and the list goes on. But one thing that I would want everybody to take away is that if you have an idea, GGU is a great place, a safe place, a supportive place to test it out where you will get real feedback. So you can try it here and expand it out in the larger society and the world. So the possibilities are limitless.
Awesome, Kudrat. You've just conveyed your energy and your enthusiasm about the field so effectively right now. I was just wondering, what are the kind of entry-level avenues into conflict management?
Yes.
Does it have to be like you starting your own practice, or are there organizations you can join, or does it have to be in collaboration with certain institutions? What are the kind of entry-level possibilities?
Sure. So how I look at conflict management, if I start with lawyers, anybody who wants to be a good, effective lawyer needs to have conflict management skills. So I'm also the legal counsel of Siemens Limited, and the sort of conversations that we are having is we want to prevent disputes. So lawyers who are skilled with this are very much valued, right? Because nobody wants to go to court. So thinking from that perspective, if you think of your career in mediation, right? And of course, you have court annex mediation centers, you have senior advocates who are senior mediators, you have private mediation. So the skills that you require to be able to take that step is what YCM is providing you with. And I think what a lot of students have said to me that, Kudrat, it's great, training and all is great, but what about practical exposure? You know, we hardly as students get that practical exposure in mediation because it's a confidential process, or, you know, our country has not recognized mediation in terms of a standalone law. So what should we do about this? And there are these different barriers, right? So to get impaneled to a court next mediation center, different high courts have different, I would call them age bars. So you have to be practicing, say, for somewhere 10 years, 6 years, only then you get impaneled. And I say that you take that responsibility and opportunity in your own hands by setting up centers at different educational institutions. So I would say the way to start is get trained, set up a center, collaborate with organizations around where you say, okay, we are skilled youth, let us support in the work that you're doing. They could be NGOs, they could be government level, grassroots level authorities, or even the disciplinary committee of your own educational institution, right? Where you can say, hey, we have a contribution to make. So.
Awesome. And then if you could give us kind of the layout of the field right now, is it different subfields with different kind of specializations within conflict management? How is the, or is it kind of divided more in terms of governmental, non-governmental, legal or informal? Like what does the field look like? Because everyone says that, you know, I see myself going into conflict management or dispute resolution or you know, mediation, but within that, like, is the field divided sectorally, issue specifically, or along community lines? What is the kind of general lay of the land?
Yeah. So before I answer that question, I have to also emphasize that how conflict management has never been given its due importance and weightage in India yet, as opposed to a jurisdiction like UK, right? So UK, you have mediation centers and you have conflict management service as a standalone running service. But India, we've not heard of conflict management as a service. We've heard of mediation as a service, right? So that's one aspect. But having said that, a lot of, let's say, mediation organizations and also organizations in the corporate sector are looking for people who can do conflict management for them, and not necessarily lawyers, right? You could be a CEO of a company where you be like, hey, there are some tough decisions that I have to take. How do I manage this conflict? And the key word is, how do I prevent it from turning into a crisis or a dispute? So the field in India is actually greenfield when it comes to conflict management. It's happening in smaller pockets and silos by people at a more individual or leadership level, but not concentrated in a way where I can say, okay, these are the 5 sectors for conflict management. But in the years to come, you will see that how this is a specialized field in itself. But right now, I would bucket it under anybody who's interested in mediation. Conflict management is something which will give you an edge than just simply doing mediation, because then you can say, yes, I can help you in resolving disputes, but even better, I can help you preventing them. So
that's very well put, Kudrat. Let's see if the students have any questions. Who would like to ask Kudrat more on this area of prospects and conflict management?
Yash and I are smiling again. So
living the good old days.
yeah.
Okay, well, sounds like maybe we should move on to the launch now. Maybe there will be a few questions in the chat as we go along. So I'm delighted to once again invite Professor Ajay Pandey to please talk to us about the collaboration between JGU and YCM and what's in store. And after Professor Pandey's remarks, I request Kudrat to please direct the rest of the proceedings.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I think Kudrat is doing something which is so inspirational, and even if one has to see her backdrop which she is using, it has YCM in it, and that reminded me of my old days as a young student, as a young law student, who was so passionate about human rights. I had a clock in my house. It was in that room where I used to sit and work. I opened that clock actually, and from a poster of human rights, this was Universal Declaration of Human Rights, I cut those two words, human rights, and I put them in my clock actually. So opened the entire clock and pasted with glue in that clock. So that clock still is there in my house. And this was 89, 90, so you can imagine. So when I was looking at that, I think this is the kind of passion that is really needed. Kudrat is looking at creating YCM as a movement, which would certainly be community-led, which would work for communities, which would also give us a way for us to work in communities effectively, to handhold communities, to tell them that after all these 75 plus years of our independence, whatever is that number, we are there, and we care about these first few words in the preamble to the Constitution of India, that is, we the people of India. So I think this initiative is extremely important, and students really want to know what is the importance of this initiative and why we should be in conflict resolution. I personally feel that if people live in conflicts, any kinds of conflicts, whether they are real conflicts or they are conflicts in the mind, because there are no avenues for people to go to for the resolution or for the redressal of those conflicts and how to go about them, things like that. I think people live a life that is not full. It is not a life that is dignified. It is not a life that is secure. So all of these aspects, all of these ideas of peace and security, etc., they have to be effectively answered in the ways that Kudrat is letting all of us to learn and to experiment with. And it's a movement. Certainly, many people would join this movement in the years to come. And it is extremely important, because in conflicts also, if we see that people are not able to lead a full life of dignity and security and peace, certainly that situation is violative of human rights. Human rights are negated. And we have to look for avenues, and we also have to look at our own situation as people associated with legal education. When we see conflicts around us, we also should look at our own failures. What has gone wrong? Why, with more and more education, we see more and more conflicts, and conflicts of all kinds. Conflicts between human beings, conflicts between environment and human beings, conflict between development and environment, and all kinds of conflicts are there. And I think this kind of a training is extremely important at educational institutions. Education, and that to legal education, has to effectively respond to these challenges and also consider these failures and rise up to the occasion, that we accept our failures. We failed somewhere, we accept those failures, and we are ready to do something about our failures. We cannot leave our people just like that. And when I say this, I also would want to make you or draw you towards considering this very important aspect of pursuit of legal education, that when you are pursuing legal education, you are certainly pursuing it not only for yourself, but on behalf of millions of people who would never know what law is. But at the same time, we know that people are to be benefited by law. This is what we know as people associated with law, whether we are students, teachers, lawyers, judges, professors, whatever is that position that we hold as people pursuing law. We have this duty and this responsibility that we have to necessarily pursue it on behalf of millions of people who would not know what law is, who would never have the wherewithal to know what law is, but they have to be in it necessarily. They have to be part of law, because law is nothing without people. If it is devoid of people, if it is devoid of masses, it is nothing. It won't work. It won't succeed. And perhaps one of the main reasons why we are not a rule of law society, although on paper, yes, we are, but in reality, we aren't. And we are not a law compliant society. We are not a rule of law society. We are not a human rights compliant society. So we have all of these challenges. And I think one of the most important reasons is that our processes, our language, what we do in our law schools, what we do in our legal practice, etc., they are all devoid of people. They're all devoid of masses. There aren't any poor people or litigants or people who have unmet legal needs in these processes, in these mechanisms, in these aspects. And I think it's extremely critical. If we are to ensure that law succeeds, law achieves its purpose, the larger purpose of law is certainly justice. If it meets it, if it has to reach to that objective, we have to find ways. We have to accept those failures. We have to address them effectively. We have to take people along. So certainly, when we are in the pursuit of legal education, we have to pursue legal education on behalf of these millions of people as if they are sitting on our shoulders. When we are in our classes, we are pursuing law wherever we are, actually, especially students. When you are in your class, you are a privileged person, because you're pursuing law on behalf of all of these millions of people, and they are on your shoulders. They're sitting on your shoulders, and you are actually carrying them all through. And this is really important, because this is all about we the people, whether it's we the people of India or we the people of United Nations. You see, we look around us, we look around and we see our neighborhood, we see Afghanistan, we see Pakistan. There are conflicts, there are issues. Now, what is happening in Afghanistan? And it is really, it's such a difficult scenario for all of us who talk about human rights, who talk about law. And our feet tremble, actually, when we talk about the situation in Afghanistan. We really don't know what to do. We have been seeing that we would be able to resolve conflicts. We would be able to come up with good development model and things like that in Afghanistan all of these 20 plus years. But everything has come to zero, actually. It looks like that. All our efforts. This is what answers we have, what answers are there in legal education. So I think from any perspective, from any point of view, look at the situation in terms of climate change. What is it that we have made of our environment? You know? Look at the massive inequality everywhere. Now conflicts are bound to happen. They are bound to be there. So I think when we consider these areas, we have to be mindful of the fact that we have to take people along. There is no other way out. There is no other way that I can really recommend to all of us. We need a strong political culture. We need a culture which would sustain law and justice, equality, dignity, all of those aspects. And I think that requires people. We do not have those resources. We have resources in people. We have to work with people. We have to take them along. This YCM and such initiatives have to become movements, right? I would stop here. I think I have taken my more than what was actually allotted to me, more time than what was allotted to me. So I'll stop here. If there are any questions, if there are any observations, comments, I'll be happy to hear from. Thank you very much.
I think Ajay sir, that was absolutely
in case
beautiful.
nobody asks.
Yeah, Yash, you want to say something? Please go ahead.
Yeah, of course. I mean, in case nobody is asking, I would definitely like to make a point or add to the conversation. Especially after when the Singapore Convention was passed and accepted and signed by a lot of countries, including India. So we think that mediation as a process for dispute resolution is going to be recognized globally and even in India soon, because rightly, as you said and even Sir said, that people, instead of resolving conflicts, it's better to not even get involved in one. So basically, I mean, the entire process of mediation will teach you how to resolve something before it turns into even a dispute. So I think just an added point, and Sir rightly pointed out that we can see across the world that there are these kind of events which are happening, which are beyond human comprehension, and mediation as a process might, and even conflict resolution as a process might help in mitigating these kind of events, because with the changing world scenario, these conflicts will keep continuing and even more new ones might develop. So I really appreciate your effort and even Sir's effort in starting this movement, because it's high time that this process as a dispute resolution mechanism needs to be promoted, with full force. So that's
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Yash, it's really nice. So as far as I remember, Yash did not ask too many questions in class. He did make these occasional points. And you were like, Yash has said something. So it's really nice to, it gives me that feel again. But thank you, Ajay sir. I think what you said encapsulates beautifully why YCM and also why YCM at GGU, right? Because I don't think there could have been a better place where students are exposed to that level of understanding and awareness. So I think JGU provides that space to students to think beyond their, traditional outlook. And with that, you'll see some students who joined in with the background saying, you can resolve it. And I want to quickly acknowledge that we have more than over 40 students from YCM GGU and experts from around the world who joined in to support this initiative, from Khaitan to Prachi Mediation to FCDR to Calm Mediation London. So thank you so much for being there. This today for YCM GGU is a historical moment, and I'm so glad that each one of you is a part of this. So with that, yes, YCM is aiming towards a situation where you can resolve it, and even better, you can prevent it. And we believe in self-to-society. So I thought, okay, let's actually ask everybody some questions. So I will ask just two things. And Ankit, if you could go to the next slide. So the statement one is something that you will see on your screen, and you have to answer yes or no, right, in the chat box. So you can write Y for yes or Y for YCM in the chat box, or N for no. So the first statement is, I have been involved in a minor disagreement, a heated argument, or a full-blown fight with someone else? Yes or no? Okay, I see answers rolling in the chat box. It's difficult in our country to get a unanimous yes, but we see that happening in our chat box. So it's nice to see that. Statement number 2. My school, so I know some of us recently graduated from school and are at college, and for some it's been decades, but go back to your school days. Statement number 2, my school has not equipped me with skills to deal with conflicts and to find solutions on my own. Yes or no? Okay. So we see a little bit of mix of answers coming in here and a combination, but seems like it's being dominated by yes. But the idea is that you should self-reflect on this. And then, Ankit, I would request you to move to statement number 3. Yeah, and given the time, I will not turn this into a yes or no, but you can answer it for yourself. Okay, people are still into the game. So, all right. So statement number 3 is, I prefer to decide the solution to my problem on my own rather than having someone else decide it for me. So ICM is not doing this, let's say, survey for the first time. We've done this several times with different groups, and 80% of people have said yes, they prefer to decide the solution to their problems on their own. Can you move to statement number 4? Disputes distract focus from what really matters in life, such as happiness, growth, and peace of mind. This one, let's open it up to everybody once again. If this statement is something that you agree with, why in the chat box? If you disagree with, and in the chat box. Why for yes and for no? Okay. Yeah. Great. So at YCM, we believe in the journey of self to society. So we start with self. How do we feel about conflicts and disputes around us, right? So majority of the people who participated in the survey today and before have said, yes, there are conflicts that we face with someone or the other. Yes, we've not been taught skills to deal with it in a very structured way in school. Some people said, yes, my football coach, someone said my martial arts teacher, or I had this really nice professor who, ran me through the process of how conflicts are inevitable. But in a formal, structured manner, our education system has not taught us skills to deal with conflicts. And most importantly, we know that this distract from important things that really matter in life, something that Professor Ajay Pandey was also referring to, right? Are we living a full life? Maybe not, because our focus is towards disputes. It takes away from our happiness, growth, peace of mind. And if we speak at a corporate level, then money, or even at an individual level, if you get stuck in the cycle of disputes, you're losing all of this. So what is the solution to these problems, right? How do we change this culture? So Ankit, if you could move to the next slide. Yeah, so what you see on the left is the cycle of disputes. And I believe we as lawyers and people from the legal education sector have also somehow contributed to this cycle of disputes, and we need to change that, right? So parties in a conflict, they find a third outsider party, either the police or lawyers or ADI facilitators, arbitrators, and mind you, I'm also including mediators here, mediators to give them some sort of solutions, right? And then they challenge it and then go to court, say, Bala and I have a dispute, I'm unhappy with it. The judgment came in Bala's favor, I'm going to appeal, and it's going to go on. Or I'm going to find ways that this judgment is actually not given its real meaning. I'll find some loophole. So I think all of us are a part of a system which is actually a cycle of disputes, and YCM seeks to give a solution to this cycle of disputes. That is by coming to the point of conflict management, right? And we believe that if conflict management skills are ingrained in our education system, at the school level, at the college level, in the way we are taught or trained as lawyers, we can really change the scene around. Yes, next slide, please, Ankit. Yeah. So these are some of the systematic problems that we see in the culture and mindset where we are dependent on lawyers, arbitrators, or even at some point mediators, even though mediation is a facilitative process and not a decision-making process, that please tell me, what should I do? So this dependency is increasing. Yes, we criticize the legal system and say, oh, no, the court system is not working well. Oh, the mediation law has not come out yet. Why? Why is court and next mediation centers, why are they not given their due importance? The legal justice system needs to change. But are we being the change? We're demanding change, it's important, but we need to go a step forward. Yes, surrender versus support. Of course, we have to take support of the state, right? The state owes us a duty to provide legal justice, and the court system is for the benefit of citizens. But are we taking support, or are we going all the way and surrendering our power and completely losing out in what system am I stuck now? And finally, suppress versus address. As a society, we've suppressed conflicts and then we take it up only after it's escalated into a serious dispute, something what Yash was also saying, right? And what we say at YCM is, there's a spark, that's a conflict. Use it in a way that you can turn it into a growth space, or it can escalate into a dispute if you don't address it at the right time. But then the question is, where are the spaces to address conflicts proactively, right? Where are the skills to address conflicts in a constructive manner to turn them into growth spaces? And that's where YCM was born, to provide a solution to all these problems in our dispute resolution culture and build a culture from dispute prevention to dispute resolution with a proactive lens. Okay, Ankit, next slide, please. And that's what we are doing. We are focusing on conflict management as a skill. There's nothing that changes, I think, in the world without youth power. So of course, we are training youth as conflict managers and mediators and building India's first network of conflict managers and mediators so that they can then collectivize their power, and YCM supports them, helping to set up chapters such as YCM GGU and then addas and different forms where they can give back to the community through their services as conflict managers and mediators. Next slide. So I think this is the most important slide of the evening. If there's one thing that you should take away, that new, that you've learned today or you've come across, it should be conflict management is essential for any dispute resolution process. It's where you can really identify the underlying issue and address it to actually resolve the dispute. I would quote Jeevan Vallabh Panda, partner at the dispute resolution team of Khaitan and Company, who said, everybody forgotten the word resolution. Dispute resolution has the word resolution, but are we actually doing that? And I think conflict management can revive the meaning of the word resolution in dispute resolution. And more importantly, it can help us in dispute prevention. So yes, our legal system and different dispute resolution processes will immensely benefit with conflict management as a part of it. But conflict management as a standalone mechanism is also really helpful for dispute resolution and dispute prevention. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And now I get so emotional, but it gives me so much of happiness to say that managing conflicts is a life skill for all. And who is leading and living this by example is our very own JGU students who've formed YCM JGU with people from diverse fields and disciplines. We had people from journalism, media, law students who came together and said, yes, these skills are relevant for me and not just for JGLS, the law school. And it's a collaborative effort along with clinical programs led by Professor Ajay Pandey, where we've been successful in establishing India's first youth conflict management center. And today we are celebrating the launch of services of trained conflict managers at YCM-GGU. So with that, I would request all YCM-GGU OC members to please turn your videos on. And I would like to do a virtual applause. I don't know if you can hear this. And for the rest of y'all, please acknowledge the effort and courage of all these students who decided to be a part of this movement and in fact lead it with such professionalism and passion. Super. Great. So we have a small video that the students have prepared to show the timeline journey of YCM-GGU. So Ankit, please play it. I'm really excited to watch this. Can't hear the audio. In the meantime, everybody who's joined in, if you all have any questions, please put them in the chat box and we will do our best to address it between different segments or at the end of the session today.
Can you hear it now?
No, we can't hear it now, but Ankit will go ahead with it. Let's just go ahead with it. We'll read what's said. So we had to do our training online because the pandemic had already hit by the time we started our trainings. So our students have interviewed people from the law field, from social enterprises to psychologists, and they've networked, done expert interviews and webinars, which has been amazing in terms of growing everybody's perspectives. And we always say dispute resolution skills are life skills. We've expanded the GGU team in 2021, completed 3 levels of training in March 21, have them assessed by experts in the field from London to Samadhan. And May 2021, we had our first cohort of conflict managers. Super. Students have put in an effort of creating newsletters. We had one in May, one in July. Interning at places where dispute resolution and mediation is given importance, from Khaitan, camps, Lewis. Thank you for sharing that, Ankit. And today, OP Jindal Global University and YCM GGU specifically is absolutely excited to have each one of you here start this journey and support the launch of our conflict managers service, which is going to be online, and it has been challenging. It has been delayed because of the pandemic, and we really wanted to do this in person. But like they say, where there's a will and there's always not just a way, several ways. So we are starting it online, but we will go hybrid. And we had some results to share with you that YCM GGU was not born out of nowhere. It was born out of a need that was specifically identified by students of GGU after doing a detailed survey. But there's paucity of time, so I will not run you through the entire survey. And Ankit, I would request you to just go to the last slide of our survey. Yeah, and we'll be happy to share this in our takeaway material. Is there violence on campus? What are the mechanisms for dispute resolution on campus? Which one is the most effective mechanism? Different questions were asked, and the most important question was, what can be better in the method for resolution of fights on campus? And people said, students solve their fights on their own. They ask friends. We need mediation. We need peer intervention. We need a separate student-led committee that could be formed, which specializes to take care of fights on campus. And Yash is smiling because both of us in our own ways have been part of different types and kinds of fights.
I had the opportunity to serve on the student council, so I can totally relate to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, students said that the first most preferred method was students solve their fights on their own. The second most preferred method was the student council comes in, right? And of course, warden, disciplinary committee, parents, that, you know, obviously made way down in the list. And that's when we decided that we are headed in the right direction, and YCM GGU was formalized on campus. With that, I would like to invite Satish Pandey, Principal Associate at Khaitan and Company from the Dispute Resolution Team. Satish, are you here? Can you hear us?
Yes, Kudrat.
Super. And Ankit, you can stop sharing the screen so that we have Satish on our screen. So Khaitan has been a super supporter of innovative ideas, and YCM specifically. I've been a part of Khaitan at some point in my life. And Satish is here to share with us, what does conflict management and dispute prevention mean for a legal practice at a law firm? So over to you, Satish. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Kudrat. Very happy to join the inauguration here. And conflicts are inevitable, and therefore in every walk of life, it is but natural to deal with conflict. If you're not dealing with conflicts, then you're surrounded by too many yes men around, and that is not good for your growth either. So therefore, conflicts are inevitable. And in a law firm practice, broadly, there are two broad things that you will do. Either you'll be involved in drafting contracts for your clients and ensuring their business interests are reflected in a contract document well, or you will be involved in the other side of the table, that is resolving those disputes that have arisen out of contracts which have been codified. Right now, let's first start with the skill of what conflicts do you face when you are representing you are drafting a contract for a client, because in effect, the process is not adversarial, but you are involved in negotiating various interests for your client. So there is always a counterparty involved, right? Say, let's take an example for law students present here, a landlord tenancy agreement, a simple rent agreement. There are various clauses where a possible conflict could arise. It could be the simplest of security deposit. The landlord may insist on 3 months as security deposit, whereas the tenant might want to give only 1 month security deposit. Right. So inevitably, and as you do more service agreements or complex shareholder disputes, shareholder agreements, you negotiate on multiple clauses, like the indemnity clauses, like the representation warranty clauses, like the covenants. And there, a client expects you to be come out protecting his interest as well as to get the deal done, not break the deal by emphasizing too much in one interest and therefore annoying the other side and making too hard a stance on the table. You want to, therefore, before you go to that negotiation meeting, understand what could be the possible conflict areas. If these three areas are possible conflict areas, then what are my plan A, plan B, plan C? And what if will plan B be feasible for my client? Will my client be willing to give this option away and be satisfied with this? Because eventually the idea is to get the deal done, rather than I want to be known as a deal maker rather than a deal breaker as a lawyer, right? So therefore, that is where your negotiation skills are very relevant when you practice in a law firm, because day in, day out, as a junior associate, you'll be negotiating small agreements, low stake contracts. But as you go higher up in the chain, you will be expected to do the front end work, and it will be a more client facing role, where you'll not only be facing your own client, because that's the easier role but you'll also be dealing with the counterparty as well as counterparties, financial and legal advisors, and you would be assessed on whether you've been able to take everyone together and get a deal done. The quicker you get a deal done, you move on to your next assignment, and therefore the journey becomes easier instead of you revisiting the same contract and negotiating over and over again, right? So that is one essential area where you'll find conflicts in small things, but you must approach it with a solution-oriented approach. What the reason why we find a number of conflicts are not getting resolved is because we do not identify these are possible conflict areas, and second, what could be a sustainable solution, rather than focusing on the conflict or the problem at hand. So that is an approach which I think through this initiative we can probably change the mindset of individuals, right? To say that no conflict cannot be resolved. Each conflict can be resolved as long as we identify the root cause of that conflict. The second is when you are a disputes lawyer. Now, the Indian legislative framework has provided in the last decade multiple avenues where you can go for a mediation before the dispute has resolved. But unlike foreign jurisdictions like Italy, where there is an opt-out mediation framework, where mandatorily before a dispute goes to a court, parties have to sit together and have a mediation session and try and resolve it. After the first session, parties can opt out of it if they do not want. That has seen more people, therefore, and in that opt-out mechanism, since mandatorily two parties, when a dispute arises, have to sit together at a table and identify possible solutions, we have seen the statistics tell you that around 50% of the disputes get resolved, and it doesn't go to the courts, right? But in India, we have the Section 12A in the Commercial Courts Act, we have the Section 89 of CPC, but it has not really seen the light of the day. There has been, the Supreme Court has let down that mediation should be made mandatory. We are having, recently the Niti Aayog came out with a framework for online dispute resolution. The COVID crisis has come at the right time, when people are realizing to go through the process of the courts all the time for even small low stake disputes is probably not the solution. Therefore, Nestway has come out with a mediation framework of online dispute resolution for its tenancy related disputes, right? Corporates are adapting to it. ICICI Bank, for example, has said disputes whose quantum is only 20 lakhs ought to be resolved through ODR. So therefore, even in that dispute scenario, in my experience as a lawyer, I have handled mediation proceedings before various forums. The approach that a mediator brings is very important. Whether the mediator is looking at possible areas where he can find a solution, or he's focusing on, though the mediator is it is not a binding arrangement where he can pass directions, but definitely a senior professional or a young mediator with a right solution-oriented approach can help and aid a client and his lawyers to arrive at a solution and not go through this process. Because eventually this ADR concept was brought about only to ensure that this whole the pendency of cases and the lack of infrastructure of getting the cases resolved quickly are done away with, but it has not achieved the purpose which it is meant to achieve. So therefore, mediation needs to, and in the next decade, like they say with COVID, what could have happened in 2030 has happened in 2020, right? Similarly, the hope is that hopefully mediation takes off, which is it has not really taken off the way it should have taken off. You find foreign jurisdictions, most of the cases, the idea, even if people initiate litigation, they're open to mediating at any stage of the litigation. But that mindset is not there in India, and that mindset change, though I'm a disputes lawyer, we also fundamentally want to ensure that all disputes are resolved quickly, and the commercial objectives of a client is realized. So therefore, what you also need as a mediator needs to also, one of the questions that was asked in the beginning of the session was, is there a sector specific angle to this mediation? In globally, yes, you're finding sector specific practice areas. You're finding conflict management as a practice area among the disputes practice in a number of law firms. And in India also, this is slowly happening, where you will find mediators who are specialized in certain sectors. So they understand which is the root cause of that problem. Say you'll have mediators who will specialize in construction and infrastructure disputes, and slowly mediators will specialize in oil and gas sector disputes. So they understand, look, this is the root cause of the problem, and therefore the possible scenarios, possible approaches to resolving this problem is probably A, B, C, D. So that will be the future of online mediation. At some stage, we need to, start somewhere, and I think this is to impart it to the law students and to raise awareness among, because it is the youth eventually who have to bring about this mindset. Every decade the profession must find its way to better hands, and there must be an attempt to make the profession better as well. So this is an attempt, I think, which is in the right spirit, and therefore hopefully more and more people start taking it seriously.
Thank you so much, Satish. It was really insightful, and thank you for sharing the practical perspective, which I think is really important for everybody who is here. So I would like to just highlight 3 things, starting with one myth that Satish has broken. So let me also share that he has also practiced as a corporate lawyer. So it was not his perception, but his own real experience when he split his answer up, saying as a corporate lawyer and as a dispute resolution lawyer. So you're hearing it right from the source. So the myth that's been broken today is dispute resolution and dispute prevention is only about those who want to get into litigation and arbitration, right? So that's the first highlight that I would want to emphasize. Even if you're a corporate lawyer or any other type of lawyer, conflict management skills will be beneficial. Contracts are everywhere. And I will stretch that to another level from an in-house perspective, right? For people who are running businesses, if the business colleagues themselves and the CEOs know conflict management, half of the problem gets sorted there. So conflict management is a life skill for everybody in every context, and it's not just limited to a particular type of lawyer or a particular type of person. And the second thing that I want to highlight is as to how it's important to create a space for youth, right? So Satish says that, we have to evolve as a profession. So yes, there's a definition of what the role of lawyers in India is today. Everybody has it in their own head. Why don't we evolve that to include dispute prevention and conflict management as a core value add that the legal profession brings to the society? That's a thought that I want to leave everybody with. And the third and also equally important thing is you have to look at what's happening around you in different jurisdictions. You can't work in a silo that, okay, India mein to aise hi chalta hai. So this is how it works. I don't have opportunities in mediation. Haan, theek hai. So I'm not going to do anything about it. Do something about it. So YCM is aiming to facilitate you doing something about it by creating a space where you can engage with conflicts constructively, learn the right skills, and make a value add for our profession to grow. So thank you so much for that, Satish. If there are any questions for Satish, please feel free to put them in the chat box or ask. I see Professor Kalyani has turned her video on. Yes, please.
We only have 5 minutes left, so we need to be wrapping up.
Okay, all right.
Pretty soon. Otherwise, we're going to run out of the Zoom meeting. Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's a very, very important update. So then I would say that just put in the question in the chat box and someone from the YCM JDU team will make a note of it and we will come back to you. And Ankit, can you share your screen again? And I would just like to show the most important part of today's event. This is a message from Bode, which we won't play. I want to give this space to our youth conflict managers, how their journey has been at YCM, GGU, and getting trained as conflict managers. So Ankit, please can we play that?
Ankit, if the sound doesn't work, I'll share it.
So Ankit, not this video, the next video. The video after this one.
Ankit,
yes.
Ankit, I think I'll share it because I think my sound works, your audio's not working.
Okay. So as Shreyas does that, I would also like to say that thank you everyone for joining us and creating time for this event. There was a lot of takeaway material that we have to share with you. So we will get in touch, and those of you all who've registered, you all will receive it over an email. YCM has announced its Mediator training course along with Khaitan and company. So thank you for that, Satish. And we've also launched a conflict manager course, which is not just limited to JDU students, but to everybody else in association with Association of Mediation Practitioners. And of course, JDU is always the backbone. And Bala will be putting a link of that takeaway flyer in the chat box for all of y'all, so that at least you'll have a follow-up way to stay connected with YCM. So what you're going to see now is a small, heart-touching, but still passionate and powerful video from youth conflict managers at YCM, who will now launch their online service to the JGU community this semester. So you'll see all of this up on LinkedIn. Yes, Shreyas, if you could play this.
Is the audio working?
We can hear it. I can't hear it, but it's fine. We'll just go with it.
Yeah, you have to unmute for audio. Somebody is just.
Yeah.
Shreyas, you have to unmute.
Please, can we have a virtual round of applause for our all certified youth conflict managers? Great. So our youth conflict managers pledge to provide the services in the best way possible and will be following the 6 values that you see on your screen, but you will hear more from YCM JGU on their services and their code of conduct. So with that, thank you for being a part of this very special moment and joining our journey today.
Thank you. Thanks, Kudrat. Thanks, Yashvardhan. This was amazing. What you guys are doing is so special. And the fact that you are giving back by helping current students at JGU learn from your experiences is just incredible. We really appreciate it. Thank you to the students and volunteers and guest speakers who participated. And thank you also to my colleagues Shireen and Pratibha who helped organize today's meeting. Okay, enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great weekend. See you all around. Bye.
Thank you.